Thank you for joining us at the National Museum, United States Navy. I'm David Barker. I'm one of the educators here. I'm an Army vet, and I hope you guys enjoy our video. Mr. David Bass works for NMUSN as a contracting specialist in Level, has many hats as a singer, gospel music, and works with NABVETS, National Association for Black Veterans Incorporated. He is going to be the moderator today. Thank you very much, David Bass. Lieutenant Commander Takana L. Jefferson is a native of Watrace, Tennessee. In 2008, she earned her Master's of Business Management with a concentration in Healthcare Management from the American Intercontinental University, Hoffman Estates, Illinois, both magna cum laude. In 2011, she finished her Master's of Divinity degree at the Memphis Theological Seminary, Memphis, Tennessee, with honors cum laude. After graduating from Basic Chaplain School at the Navy Chapel School and Center, Fort Jackson, South Carolina, she was commissioned a prior enlisted Navy Hospital Corpsman Pharmacist Technician. She has 10 years of active duty service from 1992 to 2002 and 8 years of her reserves from 2002 to 2000. Lieutenant Commander Jefferson is currently serving as the Command Chaplain for the Navy Support Activity, Washington, D.C., and a student at Howard University, earning her Doctorate of Ministry degree in Sacred Text. She was recently promoted to Lieutenant Commander on July 1st, 2001. Jefferson is married to Dr. Jonathan K. Jefferson and the mother to daughter Jasmine Scott of Greensboro, Tennessee, and son Anthony Scott of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Graduated from Kingfisher High School in 1988 and is a native of Kingfisher, Oklahoma. He joined the Navy to attend the Recruit Training Command at San Diego, California in April 1989. After graduation, he reported construction electrician A school training in Port Hueneme, California. Assignments consisted of Construction Battalion Unit 422 at Naval Station Anacostia, Washington, D.C., 1989 to 1991. In 1991, he was selected for Mobile Unit Support Equipment (MUSE) program, where he attended the Prime Power Production Specialist course at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, 1991-1992, and then transferred to the Navy Engineering and Environment Support Activity at Fort Hueneme, California, 1992-1995. In 1995, he was selected for White House Communication Agency, providing a no-break electrical infrastructure for uninterrupted communications to the President, staff, Secret Service, and WHCA throughout the world, 1995-1999. His next assignment was Naval Mobile Communications Battalion 14, 2000 to 2002. He then transferred to Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 4, where during Operation Iraqi Freedom, he served as convoy commander for 1st MEG Task Force Charlie Mike. He returned to Iraq with NMBC-4 as Air Detachment 585 for the second tour, based out of Camp Fallujah and Forward Operation Base Kalsu, Iraq, 2002 to 2005. He was assigned to Mobile Unit Construction Equipment Division at Port Hueneme, California, where he deployed support recovery and construction efforts during operations in Katrina and the California wildfires, 2005-2008. He deployed for 1 year as a GSA-IA in Camp Lemonnier, 2008. In 2009, he was selected for Command Master Chief and completed the following tours: Naval Construction Training Center, 2009-2011, Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 5, 2011-2013, Command Naval Activity Spain, Naval Station Rota, 2013-2016, Deputy Director, U.S. Navy Senior Enlisted Academy, 2016-2017, and 19 Director of U.S. Navy Senior Enlisted Academy, 2019. Force Master Chief Terrell is CB Command Warfare Specialist and Fleet Marine Force qualified. Along the way, he earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in Management from the National Louis University, a Master's degree in Administrative Leadership from the University of Oklahoma. SWAW Lynette S. Evans, U.S. Navy, served as the Executive Assistant for the Director of the Navy History and Heritage Command, located at Washington, D.C. Leaving her hometown, Columbus, Georgia, YN2, Evans joined the Navy in September 2015. After graduating from Great Lakes, she continued her career and was stationed on the USS George Washington, CVN-73, from 2016 to 19. While on CVN-73, she served as personal yeoman for the executive officer and was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medals. As president of Naval District Washington Junior Enlisted Association. She assisted in the coordination of the volunteer work, training, and upkeep of the morale of junior sailors. She is currently in school working towards her bachelor's degree in human psychology and has career goal of becoming a flag writer aide. YN2 Evans enjoys singing the national anthem for ceremonies such as retirements, change of command, promotions, and many more. So I will start with the first question. Did you know that the Continental Navy, that there were over 10% African Americans, mixed, free, and slave? And does that surprise you? Anyone who would like to answer first?
Good morning. This is Forrest Terrell. Thanks again for having us here. I would say I was aware, not exactly of the percentage, but does it surprise me? I would say no. Based on some of the duties and responsibilities that they had during that time frame. So, a little over the percentage, but not really based off like I said, those duties and responsibilities that they had at the time.
The same for me. It doesn't surprise me at all. Yes, I was aware. Again, not knowing the numbers or the percentage rather, but it doesn't surprise me. One, because I feel like that African Americans have always wanted to be a part of anything that is military, or just showing that we are equal. And that we're able and want to earn an income. We want to have a career. We want to have a life just as any and everyone else. So no, it doesn't surprise me that you had African Americans, free and slave, working during this time.
Hi, good morning. I completely agree with Ma'am and Master Chief. I was not aware of the numbers to the extent about the 10%, but I think I have more of a knowledge of African Americans overcoming their trials and tribulations and their struggles just in general. And the current climate back then in the United States, we didn't really acknowledge African Americans as citizens, but as Master Chief and Ma'am said, that they came here for a new nation and for opportunity, and that doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, thank you very much. I have to say, personally, it was amazing to me. I understood that we had people at that time period, but I was not aware of the 10%, and I wasn't aware that it was both slave and choice. The next question is, the U.S. Navy today has 13% African Americans. Would you like to see the service make more strides into expanding that number to a closer to the population difference that we have currently?
I'll go ahead and answer this time for us, Master Chief. So take that pressure off of you, being the first one. My answer would be yes. I would love to see more diversity, and I'll elaborate on that after we get down to the other portion of the question. But yes, I would love to see more diversity.
Yes, I agree. A more diverse military and Navy would be great.
I as well concur and could go on a long tangent with this one. I think it's a great question that creates, or well, no doubt, based on the answers that you just heard, generates more conversation. And we understand that there's, I would say, maybe not limitations, but in regards to how we recruit in all these services. But I think it's providing that opportunity for people to come in and serve.
I think that's great answers. How could this be accomplished, and should it be mandatory, or should we stay as a voluntary force that we have today?
I think we should remain a voluntary force. you don't want people serving who are made to come. So, or or something that should be forced. I think there are plenty of people who want to serve. And, I'll just use one quick example, because again, I know we're going to go into more questions and this will evolve. But far as me being an African-American female chaplain, I'm a unicorn. Every time I go somewhere, someone says, "Oh, I didn't know." So I don't want to be a unicorn anymore. So I want us to be intentional about our recruiting. And there are people who want to serve that after seeing me, actually, I've helped written letters to people to become chaplains who felt that call, all because of the fact that they saw me.
Yes, I definitely think it should stay voluntary. It should be represented more in the recruiting pool, so that way those who are joining diverse military that we do have and present as a whole. Then there's the following question is my next part of my answer.
Says, what are the advantages and disadvantages of that? Basically,
You've already asked the question. I'm going to go ahead and elaborate on that. So again, I think the disadvantages is that you don't want people forced or made to feel like that this is something that they have to do. All of us took this oath freely. I think that's part of our swearing in when we when we are enlisted or officers. So you want this definitely to be voluntary. And the advantages of this is, you have people who want to serve. I've been in now almost 29 years. I came in on a 2-year enlistment in 1992. Who would have ever thought? And I came in as undesignated airman. So who would have ever thought, this is where I would be today. So the opportunities are limitless, I feel, within the military. There are so many opportunities, but people have to know about those opportunities. Because in my own hometown, the only thing I ever knew about was the Army or the Marine Corps, neither of which I wanted to join the Air Force because of my uncle. But I ended up, going Navy, go blue. But nevertheless, I think, that's one of the advantages is that people who that this is their desire, this is what they want, and they're able to mentor and encourage people, and it grows for a greater and a stronger military.
Great answer, ma'am. I mean, I completely agree with you. And during travels and getting stationed, deployed overseas, I mean, there's no doubt there's other countries that, there's a requirement when they graduate, they will spend, 2 to 3 years in their country's military. But I like the fact that it's a volunteer service and you volunteer to come in to serve your country. And like I said, I think right now in the U.S., less than 1% can join. But there's still, I would still say, hey, let's give everyone the opportunity to volunteer to serve. And if it just helps, because if you know that everyone that is in the military, that wears the cloth of our nation, that they volunteered to serve, in my personal opinion, it just makes it easy when the flag goes up for us to go to conflict.
Yes, I agree with all of that 100%. I feel as if it was mandatory, we'd have a lot of unhappy sailors, and morale is a big thing, and to voluntarily get up and serve it's a different feeling in a way. Knowing that you're withholding the Navy's core values and you're wearing that with pride means everything. And to be made to do that and mandated to serve would just be a complete different aspect in the values of the Navy itself.
On July 26, 1948, President Truman issued Executive Order 9981. It abolished discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, or national origin in the United States Armed Forces. How effective do you think Executive Order 9981 was? And did it create more opportunities for African Americans and ethnic groups then and now?
That's another great question. There's no doubt that I think it created more opportunities as the Navy evolved. It was pretty much messman, landsman, or being called boy. It, those rates or job opportunities increased to coal heavers, cooks, carpenters, working in construction, or water tenders. So there's no doubt it created more opportunities in regards to that. But I think on the other side of it, this is when we begin to talk about um, culture and unconscious bias. And I think when we talk about opportunities to excel in a rate or rating or a career field, um, it's about the equal opportunity to allow someone to excel um, based on their knowledge and what they've achieved or continue to achieve.
And I concur with Forrest Master Chief as well. But I do want to note that before 1948, on March 17, 1944, the Golden 13 naval officers were commissioned before this time. So while I'm sure, of course, Truman's his act did assist and open up the doors, especially even more for our enlisted rate. We cannot not acknowledge the fact that we did have officers who were commissioned, African American officers, the Golden 13, right before, a few years before that in 1944. So I think that's very important to bring up and note as well.
Great.
Can I say one thing? Ma'am, you brought up a great point. Something that, I'm not going to speculate. I think about during that time, I think it was July, maybe 44, when we talk about Port Chicago 50. So when we talk about in Concord, California, there at Port Chicago, where we had, you can just take, let's just take race out of it for just a second. You have enlisted men that were not trained in loading munitions, for the war, and I get it, but they're not trained in doing that. And then you had officers that were racing to see how many can load munitions the fastest. So, in regards to that, long story short, there was a huge explosion. Over 320 were killed. And then you have the 50 that we call Port Chicago 50 that were charged with mutiny at the time. And, as soon as that explosion was over, they didn't get any R&R or speak to anyone in regards to the incident like the officers did. They had to go clean up the bodies and then get back to work. And that's when we have that, they were charged with mutiny, because it wasn't because they didn't want to do the work. To be honest, it was because they were scared of another explosion. They didn't have the training. So I'll just say, through my lens, I think, some of those things that were leading up to 1948 was kind of, your hands were kind of tied that, hey, you better do something, because, it's getting out of hand, and, sailors weren't treated equally in regards to that. And I think, what Chap said and this are two great instances around that. Over.
That's interesting. You brought that up. This whole idea of things happening like that, and what kind of punishment or whatever. African American members of the armed service are more likely to face disciplinary action. A recent study found Black service members in all four branches of the armed services were more likely to face disciplinary action, including general punishment or court-martial, than white troops. Would you agree with this assessment? And if so, what do you think could be done to ensure a fairer disciplinary process? Any one of you.
I'll answer first. I'll give you two a break. I think if we had a more diverse board, so when people got in trouble and they went up, whether it was MAST or DRB, if we had a more diverse panel to sit on the board and, you know, judge each other based on their actions, that it would be more equal to say. Yeah.
Do you think there's some reticence as a result of the way, you know, military justice is administered, particularly with command, you know, chain of command kinds of issues? Do you think that's, you know, one of the reasons there may be some concern in terms of, you know, bringing forth issues when they arise?
To answer it, that's a tough question. And I've been to NJP, been there once, but I'm like, hey, okay, I'm never going back. So one was enough for me to set me on the straight and narrow, because I was absolutely scared. In response to that, that's another tough one. I think that we just have to keep the process the same, which we have that in place. The tough piece is every CO is different. He is on the CO, but I think when we get the right people involved to have a discussion, not to weigh the CO's opinion, but when we have those discussions, at least to be able to look through the different lenses to provide the CO the most amount of information that he or she needs to make the correct decision. I think that might be the gap, and where we need to do better is bringing everyone in. As I'm looking at the chaps, I mean, you know, being a command master chief and growing up, I mean, I relied heavily on the chaps because personally it helped me look through a different lens that, you know, coming up, being a, you know, you want to make sure that you discipline the individual, but you want to make sure that you're doing it, you know, in the right way or providing the right recommendation to the commanding officer. Over.
And that's what I was going to say. Thank you, Force Master Chief, for bringing that up, because I'll say there's a couple of things that need to happen coming from the standpoint of a chaplain. And I have been to DRB twice when I was enlisted, so thank God, you know, anything can happen, right? Took me the second time at least I didn't make it to NJP, thank you, Jesus, but I did end up at DRB twice in my struggles. And I'm going to be honest with you, for me, it was a lack of mentorship. I didn't have mentorship and guidance. As a young sailor coming up, I was just kind of out there on my own trying to figure it out and making a lot of mistakes. And I think that a lot of it comes from that standpoint too, is offering mentorship and guidance to our young sailors that come in. And that's really a lot of what I do now, even as a chaplain, because I've been there. So I know, you know, I was on that enlisted side. Also too, as Force Master Chief was saying, talking, a lot of times information doesn't always get up to the top. Sometimes people tell the commanding officer what they want the commanding officer to know, and that's it. There may be other unknown factors or, you know, mitigating factors that could weigh differently. I know when I advise my commanding officer, the first thing I say, I understand good order and discipline, but I want to give you all the information to allow an informed decision. And whatever decision that you give at that point in time, I will support you. But I think you need to know all the pieces, because a lot of times there's a big chunk that's missing. Oftentimes is what I have seen in my career, which then causes some issues. Sometimes it's on the part of the sailor because they're afraid. You know, they feel that they're going to be retribution. So they're, you know, automatically just on the fence. The sea lawyers do not help in the situation, because sometimes things are small, which end up being blown out of proportion because they listen to the sea lawyer. And now here we go. And then they call chaps to come in and clean it up. And I'm like, So, so I think all of that, you know, plays a part. And again, I still think it goes back to diversity and that mentorship and being able to meet sailors where they are, and the leadership being able to have an open mind too and say, okay, when I was this age, because as Matt Formash said, I would have never thought, Forrest, that you were, you know, had to go to NJP. sailors need to hear this. They need to know that, you know, people have messed up a time or two, and not saying that that's what I want you to do. That's not how I want you to learn, but it does happen, and there are ways to recover. You don't even have to go down that road. Let me help you not go down that road. Or, and again, when making those decisions, think about where they were during that time as well. And I think bringing all that together can really help when it comes to disciplining our sailors.
Wonderful. Miss Evans, did you want to offer something, or have they said it all? Sorry, you can say.
They definitely said it all. I agree with everything said. Mentorship is a big thing. If I mean, as a junior sailor myself, I've been in trouble a few times. Never had to go to DRB yet, knock on wood. But I do say that mentorship goes a long way when it comes to staying out of trouble and just knowing that, you know, sorry, I'm forgetting, your rank is blanking me, but as a ma'am in higher ranks and a master chief can both get in trouble and come back from that, and that's incredible. I would have never thought that until I met my master chief previously, and he was like, I've been to mass a few times, and I was like, really? So it's definitely a big thing with mentorship, and just knowing that you have people there for you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. African American women make up a third of women in today's military. They comprise about 30% of all females in the military, twice as high for African American men. African American men only comprise 17% of males in the military. Why do you think the military has attracted so many African American women?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that must be enlisted, because it's not over here on the opposite side of the house. I don't know where they are. I'm just gonna be real. I just said I'm a unicorn. Every time I go somewhere, people can't believe as a Black female, as an officer, and I'm a chaplain. So yes, I'm not gonna get into that because it's recorded. But anyway, so I think that there is more that can be done to recruit us in. I think part of it, maybe from an enlisted standpoint, I know for me, and all I can speak from, I think, is that one, to get away from home, two, to be able to travel, to be able to do something different and serve your country. I mean, it's especially right now, I think a lot of people think it's really cool. You know, in their mind, wow, I get to go all these different places. I get, you know, education, and, you know, protect and serve my country. And the door is open for women. You know, right now, women also make that up the highest percentage in colleges, you know, in higher education. So I just think that times are changing and evolving, and women are saying, hey, I can do this just as well as anyone else, you know, so I'm just as qualified as anyone else to be able to serve, to be able to get an education, and all those different avenues.
All right, Master Chief, do you see, from your standpoint, vantage point, you know, attitudes changing as far as, you know, the males towards, you know, seeing their female counterparts?
I don't think so. Not at all. I will tell you, you know, of course, being in the Navy, oh my gosh, I think it was 1994. It could have been a little bit earlier, maybe a year earlier. I'll say between 93 and 95, when the military or DOD allowed females in combat units or operational units during that time frame. I think I have the same look on it then as I do now. I mean, there's no issues. I mean, you know, women perform just as well, if not better, in some cases. So now that you know, there's nothing further I can add. I believe what Chap's done in regards to that.
Let me read something. You know, with all the technical difficulties, I wanted to start by reading this particular quote. It's from retired four-star Admiral Michelle J. Howard, who took command of the USS Rushmore in March 12, 1999. She became the first African-American woman to command a ship in the U.S. Navy. And also she headed a U.S. Navy task force charged with countering piracy in the Arabian Sea. And as a matter of fact, she was responsible for rescuing Captain Phillips. You all saw the Tom Hanks movie, while I don't think she was in it, but there was a part where I think the commanding officer was on the phone. The interesting thing about it, I think she was over at NAVC, scheduled to do a talk, and all of a sudden it got canceled. Somewhere around that time, we kind of surmised after the fact that maybe it was related to that. But anyway, her quote is thus: "By taking the time to educate ourselves on our history and the people who shaped this nation, we can more fully appreciate the ideals set down by the founders. It's a reminder that our work is to sustain freedom and ensure that rights and liberty belong to all our citizens." A 4-star admiral who's a woman, that's certainly something to be thankful for and proud of. I just wanted to get that in. You go to say, on June 1st, 1917, the United States Navy promoted John Henry Dick Turpin to chief gunner's mate, making him one of the first African-American chief petty officers in the Navy. What were some of the challenges you had to overcome to achieve the rank you now have? How did you overcome the challenges? And, were there any, I know it was mentioned earlier, I think one of the remarks was that if you had mentors and stuff, but even without that, it's obvious that you all were able to achieve. And so, I'm just curious, what were some of the challenges you had to overcome? And more importantly, what did you do in face of all the challenges to be successful as you are with the rank you currently hold?
Okay.
Anyone?
That's a tough question, because I'm just going to be honest. When I first came in, there was definitely discrimination, definitely use of the N-word. It maybe on the tail end. So I think early on it was kind of like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to get after it. And I'm going to prove you wrong. And that was an internal drive for me. And as begin to make rank, the other challenges as you make rank is you hear the noise that people are saying, hey, he's only getting selected or promoted, because he's black. So basically because it's, a check in the block. And then that's another internal drive, and it might be inflicted, but it's, once again, it's going to go back to when I first came in. Hey, I'm going to prove you wrong, but also, in return to pay it forward, leave a legacy, if you will, and help anyone that's willing to make a difference. So it's, I hopefully that doesn't sound too selfish, and hopefully I'm answering your question correctly. When I was younger, it was clearly based on the color of my skin. And then as I began to get more senior, it seemed that the noise was, hey, only getting, promoted by the color of my skin. And I think that's the tough part is, we talk about an iceberg, or we talk about like a duck. A duck looks so smooth on top of the water, but, below they're like, moving fast. So, people they just look at someone that's successful, but they don't look at the journey or the road that they've been on, or try to look at the journey and the road that they've been on. And I'm not saying all people, but I'm just saying, through my lens, that's how I felt. But let's not get it twisted. We've definitely made some strides in the right direction, moving on a good glide slope. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Someone else, and you would like to offer a thought?
Yes. All right. Forrest, yes, always. I wanted you to go first this time. But anyway, I can definitely say it's a challenge being African-American female. It is. And I saw it more so when I became an officer. It's a different world over here. And what I will say is that, yes, I've experienced racism. I've experienced, why am I here as a female? How did I get here? Women shouldn't be in this particular role. And, for me, it's the same thing. It's determination. I feel like for me, so since I'm a chaplain, I got to speak from faith. Okay. So for me I feel like this is where God has placed me, and this is where God has placed me. This is where I'm going to stay until God tells me it's time for me to do something else. I'm not even going to go into the story, but I will say that, yes, as Matt Ford said, there are some challenges. People see me here, but they don't know what it took to get here. And again, I will say is that determination, that internal drive is that, yes, I know, and it may not be popular, but I feel like, yes, I do have to work very, very hard. Yes, I have to feel like maybe I overachieve, but I feel like that's the price. I feel like a small price to pay. I feel like in order to be able to mentor, to be able to guide, to have a seat at the table, to continue to open the doors that were open for me, because I think the people that went before me went through a whole lot worse than what I'm going through right now. So if all I got to deal with is a little name calling or whatever, I'm willing to take it. But just like Force said, things have gotten a lot better. Because yes, when I walk into a room, they look at me funny. Ooh, they sit back and I laugh. But then once they get to know me and they're like, wow, this chaplain is like awesome. And so it breaks down those barriers. So I also think it's an opportunity to break down those barriers, to break down those stereotypes, to all the things that you thought I was about. Now you really know because you've met me. And so now they're less likely to place those stereotypes on the next African-American female that comes behind me, or any woman at that point. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, you are, but Ms. Evans, would you like to offer some thoughts?
Yes. I think I've been fortunate enough to not deal with racism as much since I've been in. But as ma'am said, there are many African-American women that have gone before me, and they've worked so hard to break those statistics so we wouldn't have to go through that. And I use that as my drive to succeed and to strive to study harder and make it up the ranks and show people that are lower ranking than me, or even younger children that have vision joining the military, that it can be done. And there's nothing. So yeah. Yes.
Okay. Now I appreciate the responses. In another life, I used to do a lot of community service work here in the DC area, dealing with youth, and we dealt with a lot of issues: teen pregnancy, gun violence, etc., and all that. And one of the things that we had to always be mindful of, and this gets to this whole part about how did you overcome the challenges. I heard exactly what you all said, but to be a little bit more specific, there's a certain amount of self-maintenance that you have to deal with in terms of, with all of the pressures and things, being a woman, African male, or whatever. What have you done personally? I mean, from making sure you have time off. I think Lieutenant Commander Jefferson, you might have a little advantage because, you're a little closer talking to the man upstairs. So you may have that. But, have you done some personal kinds of things to ensure and make sure that you have good health mentally and physically so that you can continue to meet those challenges?
I'll answer first. I make it a thing for myself to not take work home. The stress from work, I leave it at the door. It's kind of more difficult when you're teleworking. I've created a mindset that I work all night, and it's bad, but at a certain time, turn off all your electronics and just take that moment, like whether it's 5 minutes, an hour, to just self-reflect, make a goal list where it's short-term goals. What do you want to do this weekend for yourself? Whether it's going to get drinks with your friends or reading a book, it's just something to clear your whole head of any type of stress and just to focus on myself. And doing that, whether it's every day or every other day, it's taken a lot of stress off of me when it comes to work. And everyone should practice that. Self-love.
Someone else would like to contribute what you do to ensure that you have, a positive, healthy, mental and health kind of, well-being so you continue doing what you're doing?
Okay, I'm going to confess in front of chaps. Ask her to pray for me.
I got you covered, Forrest. Got you covered.
Thank you. I didn't start making this comment that I'm about to say until toward the end of, I guess, mid last year. Came in 89. I didn't realize I had a family until 2019. And what do I mean by that? 2019 is the first time that I took 5 days with my family and completely unplugged. Meaning I didn't check emails. I didn't do anything in regards to work. Said, hey, someone has it. Now I might take leave and might visit family or whatever, but well, back in the day it was a pager, but had a phone or, had my iPad or wherever the case may be. And then in 2021, we didn't take it in 2020, but 2021, we did it again for 5 days where I can completely unplugged. Well, actually, that's a lie. My wife caught me, and it was, I hid my computer in the bag. So, and then we're going to do it again in 2022. So that's the thing, is now we put it on the calendar, a week where I completely unplug. And I say that, and now that I talk about it all hands to say, hey, don't be like me. But I think that question that we spoke about earlier, it might not have looked like that on the outside, but internal, I think my internal drive was, hey, I have to do more. I have to be on call. I have to do whatever it takes to say that, I can do whatever. And I don't know, I can't speak for everyone of color or, gender background, that I don't know if that's in their mind like it was in my mind, that, you have to do more to try to get to that, what I might call the equal line, to, to say, hey, I can accomplish or do X, Y, and Z. But I haven't, I'm trying to figure it out, trying to do some quality time or whatever. But my hat's off to, it's Evans, right? Is it Evans or Adams?
Miss Evans.
Evans. My hat's off to Petty Officer Evans to learn that early on, because it's going to help you in the long run. And I'll stop there.
Okay, I will say for me, yes, when I was enlisted, I lived. I'm not gonna lie, I ended up at DRB twice. But anyway, as an officer, as a chaplain, chaplains, we're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. People don't realize, a lot of times how often I get called on the weekends and things like that. But I do self-care, and I tell my sailors that, for me, part of it is exercise, and I have my Peloton, which is life. I have a new gym app that I love doing, that I go, and the more weight I lift, I see the next following week I get to do more. So that super excites me. I get pedicures, because that is the one place I can have green toes and no one says a word. So for me, that is my rebellion. I just said it out loud. Hope I don't get inspected now. But anyway, my secret rebellion is being able to go and get a pedicure and have orange. My husband's like, why are your toes? I said, because that's the only place I can express my true inner person. But I'm very family oriented. So my husband and I, and Forrest, I'm glad you're starting to do that now. But I've been doing it. I tell my CEOs when I check on, if you allow me just to have a week, you'll have the best dedicated chaplain ever in the universe. But I need at least 1 week a year to get away. And so my husband and I, every year, whether it's what's been kind of rough with COVID, Barbados was a bust, but we're definitely planning for 2022. But we go somewhere in the islands where we do not have access to our phones, laptops. I put it all down. And Forrest, I'm so glad you confessed your sins. God truly does forgive. But you have to take that time. You have to have that mental break. Even sometimes on the weekend now, I'm practicing, just taking a day and practicing my Sabbath, which doesn't have to be on Sunday. It can be any day that you're going to take time, unwind, unplug from everything, and just refuel yourself, because you really can't be better to others if you don't take care of yourself. So you really, really have to practice, what you preach. And yes, some days are better than others. Sometimes I forget, but for the most part, I'm pretty good on saying, you know what, is creating those boundaries. There's nothing wrong with having boundaries now that I'm learning as well, because it's the same thing for us, saying, you feel like you have to go, 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 but, you can't go forever. You're going to run out. So you have to refuel yourself. So over.
Oh, well, that's good. Chaplain Jefferson, the secret's in the toes. Does that mean we can see you walking around a Nancy in flip-flops?
Oh, no, not in uniform now. Not in uniform. If you catch me on the weekend in my civilian clothes, you might see some orange, some green. I don't know what colors. I got green, mint green right now. It's time for me to do a touch-up, so I might have orange next week.
Well, I appreciate the responses. And all of what you do is a high-pressure kind of environment. And it is very easy to get caught up, particularly, if you are African American. I don't care whether you're male or female. There's a lot of things that have to be contended with. And so in trying to achieve and trying to be the best you can be and all you can be to represent your country, etc., there do come times when it's like, oh, I'm at the end of my rope. What can I do? Where can I go for help, etc. And of course, within our community, issues of mental health is, still a taboo kind of thing. Although I'm happy to see that over the, last few years, it is something that's out in the opening with the young gymnast, who came out and said, hey, I need to pull back because I had something called a twisties, which is a mental kind of thing. So it's good to hear that you all are doing things to, stay healthy and stay productive so that you can do everything. I've got.
Hey, and for everybody, thank you very much. You guys are doing great.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, let me start out by apologizing to everyone through the technical things or whatever. I had a certain thing, going to try to do, and then it took me a little while to kind of turn the corner to get it together and jump in. So to David for asking me, and so you all know what happened was, and this could be a resource for you all. There's a book called Forgotten. Some of you may have read it, but if you haven't, it's called Forgotten. It's the untold story of D-Day's Black heroes at home and at war. And it was written by a lady named Linda, and I'm going to spell her last name so I won't butcher it. Hervieux. And it's very good. I read the book and got it as a result of being connected with a service organization called the National Association for Black Veterans. And I went into the Navy Museum on base and happened to meet David Barker and tell him about this resource. And he was kind enough to direct me towards John Royal. And then David mentioned he was doing something coming up and they were looking for someone, maybe to kind of help them out. So that's how I got to be a part of all this. So I want to thank you all for participating. And I can at least say that's, Commander Force Master Chief Delbert Terrell Jr., who hails from, Kingfish, Oklahoma. And we have Lieutenant Commander Takana Jefferson. Hope I didn't butcher that up. She's from Watrous, Tennessee. And then we have Miss Lynette Evans. And she's, down in here from Columbus, Georgia. Okay, I want to thank you all. This is the last question. You all can think about it and ask it in any order that you choose. But what was the person or experience that helped you decide on a career in the military? I'll repeat it. What was the person or experience that helped you decide on a career in the military?
Okay, that's a tough question. I'll go first. And I think the reason it's a tough question because what got me in the military is not the reason that I decided to make it a career in the military. And it's tough to say that it's one person or one experience. So coming from Oklahoma, I'd started in college, but I started hanging out and didn't have any discipline, and that's when I joined the Navy. And I didn't know what I was going to do and joined the Navy. And then, even though, as I mentioned earlier, those first 1 to 3 years was tough, the piece that I enjoyed 5 years and beyond was the camaraderie. There is nothing like the camaraderie of the people that you come in contact with, and different locations, different areas in the world, in the States, and learning new experiences like Chaps mentioned earlier as far as being deployed. So to keep it short, for me, it's the camaraderie, the experience, and I am being judged on what I do and how I perform, and I can control that, and I like that, and that is what has kept me in this far, and will continue to serve until they kick me out. So thanks again for your time.
Is there another?
All right, I was going to let Ms. Evans go, but I'll go ahead and go. Kind of like Forrest, the reason I joined was definitely different from why I've stayed in. But I would say probably the biggest factor for me to stay in now is the fact that just being able to be a mentor, to be able to, again, to have a seat at the table, to be able to give back what was given to me. I've had so many different people pour into me. I would hate to just pick out one, because if they see this video, then they might feel a certain way. So I'll just say I am a product of the village who reached back and poured into me. I am a result of them. And because I'm a result of them, I feel it is my obligation to pay it forward, to be there for those enlisted sailors who do not have a voice sometimes, that may feel like no one else cares, to be there for them and advocate for them. So I do it again too for the camaraderie. I always say that, the Navy to me has always been a family. It may be dysfunctional, but what family isn't? We always have a little dysfunction in every family. But at the end of the day, I still see where we support each other, where we come together. We try to make strides. We do things like this, have the videos and recording to really re-examine how can we be better over time. No, we don't have it down perfect yet, but none of us do. We're striving towards that point. And so for me, I think that is the motivation. And I do have to give a shout out for the National Naval Officers Association, since I am on here on behalf of them, even though I'm the command chaplain at Naval Support Activity Washington at the Navy Yard. The National Naval Officers Association has been a very supportive network. It was founded in 1972 by a group of officers at the Naval Academy. And it helps mentor you. You meet people, you meet 06s and admirals and people that you normally wouldn't meet on a day-to-day basis, who are also able to help groom you and, help continue, help you with your career, and so that you can pay it down and pay it forward. And again, thank you for this opportunity. It was awesome. Over.
Yes, I have to agree. The reason I joined is completely different to why I've stayed in and decided to make this a career. I sing the national anthem a lot for retirement ceremonies and other ceremonies out in the community. And one of the biggest reasons I've stayed in is because, for whatever reason, every time I'm done singing, a group of small children gather around me, and they're just in complete awe. And it gets emotional because they're just staring up at me, or directly at me, because I'm their height, and they're like I am, and they're like, so is it hard? Can I do it too? I want to be a lawyer. I want to do this. And I'm like, you can do anything you put your mind to. And that's the reason I've stayed in, is because I'm the person that they're looking up to at that moment, and they see their future through me. And that's just really powerful to me, is that you can make a difference no matter who you are, where you are. If it doesn't matter, as long as they see a bigger picture and they see themselves through you. And that's just the biggest thing for me, is to continue that no matter what.
Thank you. Ms. Evans, you hit the nail on the head and put the icing on the cake. All three of you, thank you for your service. You all are role models folks look at you. One of the comments earlier was about mentors. You can mentor directly and indirectly. In your case, there's folks who don't even know you, but when they see you, particularly if they look like you, that is something that they can aspire towards, at least, arouse curiosity. Ms. Evans, we have a little something in common over at the Naval base. I work with Office of Protocol, Ms. Henson, from time to time. I also will be asked to sing the national anthem. I sing and write gospel music and record it. And in fact, there's a particular song I wrote that's dedicated to all of you. It's called Remember the Vets. And, you can hear it at my website, gospel.com, www.davebassgospel.com. And I want to thank David for inviting me to be a participant in this, and thank you all for your time. And David, I'll throw it back to you.
All right. I would like to say thank you all very much for participating. I am hoping that you guys enjoyed this. And for the people watching, thank you very much from the National Museum, United States Navy. We will continue to do our digital footprint, and we will continue this forward. Thank you.